Buonasera, signore.
Edward Snowden calls himself a trained spy. Locally, jury discharged in high-profile corruption trial, and Occupy Central organizers put their future on the line. Good evening and welcome. Former U.S. spy agency contractor Edward Snowden says he was a trained spy for the United States. Snowden, who leaked a raft of secret documents to the media last year, made the claim in his first interview with an American television network. U.S. fugitive Edward Snowden makes the claims in an exclusive interview with U.S. television network NBC.
I was trained as a spy in sort of the traditional sense of the word, in that I lived and worked undercover overseas, pretending to work in a job that I'm not. And even being assigned a name that was not mine.
Snowden says he was tasked by the Central Intelligence Agency and the National Security Agency to develop sources and methods for keeping information and people secure in hostile environments. The claims contradict the position of his critics and Washington that he was a low-level analyst.
I am a technical specialist. I am a technical expert. I don't work with people. I don't recruit agents. What I do is I put systems to work for the United States. And I've done that at all levels, from the bottom on the ground all the way to the top.
NBC News conducted the interview last week in Russia, where Snowden currently lives in asylum. The full interview will be aired Wednesday night in the U.S. Snowden says the U.S. government has been distorting one aspect of his former NSA position to downplay the larger scope of his responsibilities.
So when they say I'm a low-level systems administrator, that I don't know what I'm talking about, I'd say it's somewhat misleading.
It's believed the former computer network administrator leaked as many as 1.7 million secret documents. The files revealed a massive U.S. government system for monitoring phone and internet data, and that U.S. spies tapped the phones of European leaders. The leaks have caused considerable damage to U.S. relations with its allies. Washington has since begun restricting some NSA activities, but Snowden recently told a German magazine that he has new information to share with a German parliamentary inquiry currently investigating U.S. surveillance. Snowden fled to Hong Kong last year before eventually ending up in Russia. He could face 30 years in prison on U.S. espionage charges if convicted. Here in Hong Kong, another delay in the corruption trial of former Chief Secretary for Administration Raphael Hui and four others, including Sun Hung Kai Properties Joint Chairman Thomas and Raymond Kwok. The jury was discharged today after one member withdrew this morning for health reasons. Ronnie Samtani reports.
The 5 defendants involved in the case arrived at the High Court this morning. The trial was expected to open today, following a delay yesterday when one of the jurors was unable to show up because of a health problem. The man submitted a doctor's certificate to court today, explaining that he had undergone a double hernia operation in March and that his wound is still recovering and painful. He requested to withdraw from jury service because of his health. The juror added that he is self-employed, so after serving his duty in court during the day, he would have to finish his work, ordering and repairing car batteries for his clients. As he normally works 10 hours a day at the garage, he said there would not be enough time for him to complete his work. Mr. Justice Andrew McRae asked the man why he did not bring up his health problems on Monday during the jury selection process. The juror replied that he did not think it was a sufficient reason for exemption. The judge pointed out that the man's health condition would not be affected by the trial, as he would just be sitting in court. But the judge continued that risk would arise if the juror went back to work after court, trying to cram 10 hours of work into 3 hours. The judge said that would in turn affect the juror's health, and then he wouldn't be fit to sit in court. Justice Andrew McRae asked the juror if he could cut back on his work during the trial. After consulting the counsel and questioning the juror about his ability to stay on as a member of the jury, Justice Andrew McRae said he was reluctantly persuaded to dismiss the juror. 4 of the defense counsels insisted then that an 8-member jury panel was not ideal for this case, and so the judge decided to discharge all jury members. The case has been adjourned until next Wednesday. Ronnie Samtani, TVB News.
Occupy Central organizers may call off their movement if the turnout for a so-called civil referendum next month fails to meet expectations. They're hoping at least 100,000 people will show up for the vote. Evelina Lung reports.
Vote on June 22nd. Various groups fighting for what they call true democracy marched from Chater Garden to the central government offices in Tamar today. They called on the people of Hong Kong to vote in the so-called civil referendum organized by the Occupy Central movement. Occupy Central organizer Benny Tai hopes more than 230,000 people will do so. But if the turnout is less than 100,000, Tai and the other 2 organizers will offer a public apology and consider abandoning their movement.
In case that we could not be able to get that very minimal number, I think we have to be responsible and accountable to all our supporters, that it may be an indication that Hong Kong people may not consider our leadership as proper.
But Tai stressed this doesn't mean the trio will give up their campaign for true democracy. He said they will simply give up their roles as organizers and leaders, but that they may join forces with other democratic groups to continue the fight. In next month's referendum, voters will choose among 3 shortlisted political reform proposals. All of them include elements of public nomination of chief executive candidates. On top of that, voters will be able to express their views on a newly added question. The new question is added to boost voter turnout after it was pointed out that the 3 proposals offer voters a limited choice. An example of the question, asking members of the public if LegCo should reject the government's reform package should it fail to allow real choices for the people. Evelyn Lang, TVB News.
The spiraling budget for the West Kowloon Cultural District is getting more scrutiny from lawmakers. At issue is a plan to spend $300 million to prepare a basement at the site. Here's Diane To.
Reporting to a panel of lawmakers who oversee the project, West Kowloon Cultural District Authority Chairman Carrie Lam said the planned arts and cultural hub is facing a tremendous financial burden. Lam said the $21.6 billion funding sought in 2008 is enough for the first and second batches of facilities such as the Chinese Opera Sichu Center, the M+ Museum and a park. The government earlier agreed to take up the construction cost of an integrated basement at the site, estimated to cost $23 billion. Lam said today it'll apply to LegCo for $300 million for preparation work. But lawmakers were concerned about the project's costs.
I
understand that the budget was just a basic budget, but up till now, there is a feeling that the government is treating LegCo as a ATM. It's coming for hundreds of millions, otherwise we'll have just a big construction site.
Lam explained that the $300 million application is not additional on top of the Cultural District's $21.6 billion funding, as the government is covering the cost of the basement as public infrastructure works separately. She rejected suggestions that the designs should be changed now and said the authority will seek donations and sponsorships and explore other financing methods.
To the west side of the site, the Artist Square development area will be commissioned as soon as possible to bring in retail, catering, and leisure facilities that will bring us proceeds.
Lam said delays in the high-speed rail link construction in West Kowloon is affecting progress in parts of the works on the cultural district. She said the government will discuss with the MTR Corporation to see if an earlier schedule can be arranged for the works to go ahead. Diane To, TVB News.
Overseas now, and in a key speech on foreign policy a short while ago, U.S. President Barack Obama called for restraint before embarking on more military adventures elsewhere. He also called for a shift in counterterrorism strategy.
For the foreseeable future, the most direct threat to America, at home and abroad, remains terrorism. But a strategy that involves invading every country that harbors terrorist networks is naive and unsustainable. And the need for a new strategy reflects the fact that today's principal threat no longer comes from a centralized al-Qaeda leadership. Instead, it comes from decentralized al-Qaeda affiliates and extremists.
Yesterday, Barack Obama outlined plans to end American military engagement in Afghanistan by the time he leaves office. Jameson Wong has that story.
We have to recognize Afghanistan will not be a perfect place. And it is not America's responsibility to make it one. The future of Afghanistan must be decided by Afghans.
So this is the timeline unveiled by Obama. America's combat mission in Afghanistan will be over by the end of this year. From 2015 onwards, Obama wants Afghans to be fully responsible for their own security. And by the end of 2016, a more or less complete withdrawal of U.S. troops.
At the beginning of 2015, we will have approximately 9,800 U.S. service members in different parts of the country, together with our NATO allies and other partners. By the end of 2015, we will have reduced that presence by roughly half. 1 year later, by the end of 2016, our military will draw down to a normal embassy presence in Kabul with a security assistance component, just as we've done in Iraq.
9,800 troops plus several thousand NATO troops is really going to hit the sweet spot, really the upper end of what the generals have been recommending is required to provide the Afghans with this advise and assist mission beyond 2014.
It's already been America's longest war. Obama's predecessor, George W. Bush, sent troops to Afghanistan following the 9/11 attacks back in 2001. Obama said, now we're finishing the job we've started. A group of Republican senators lashed out at the decision, calling it a monumental mistake that would embolden America's enemies. Jameson Wong, TVB News.
Another tragedy to tell you about in South Korea. 21 people are dead and several others injured after a fire broke out at a rural hospital for chronically ill elderly patients. The blaze started shortly after midnight. Most of the victims were elderly patients who were unable to walk or move freely. An 81-year-old man suffering from dementia was taken into police custody after security footage showed him entering an area where the fire broke out. On Monday, a fire at a bus terminal and shopping complex on the outskirts of Seoul killed 8 people. Pakistani woman who is said to have been 5 months pregnant has been stoned to death by her own family for marrying the man she loved. Police say about 20 members of the woman's family attacked her and her husband with batons and bricks outside a courthouse. The so-called honor killing happened in broad daylight in front of a crowd of onlookers. Police say 25-year-old Farzana Parveen married her husband against her family's wishes. Her father had filed an abduction case against the husband, which the couple was fighting in court. The woman's father has been arrested. Police are still searching for the other attackers. Renowned U.S. author and poet Maya Angelou has died. Angelou was one of the most famous African-American female writers. Her 1970 classic, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, has been a bestseller. She was also a top civil rights activist, as well as a stage actress and dancer. Maya Angelou was 86. Sports now, and this Saturday, big-time boxing returns to Macau. The card features former world champion Nonito Donaire. He's the Philippines' other big boxing star. Jameson Wong reports from Macau.
For two fighters who share a lot in common, how about attending the same school when they were kids? Filipino boxers